Kaulana na pua o Hawaii. Kupa ama hope o kaina. Ki mai ka lele o ka loko ino. Pala pala anu me ka paka. Kaulana, kaulana na pua o Hawaii. Kupa ama hope o kaina. Pane mai Hawaii moku o ke are.
Aloha, I'm Lila Berg, host of this program. Welcome to the Sovereignty Conversations, dialogues with Hawaiian sovereignty thought leaders about models of sovereignty and Hawaii's political future. History has revealed that in 1898, the United States extended its territory in the Pacific by annexing the Republic of Hawaii through a U.S. congressional resolution, understood in international law as an illegal act. The Republic of Hawaii became a territory of the United States in 1900 and a state in 1959. On January 21, 1993, President Clinton signed the Apology Bill, acknowledging the United States' actions to claim the Kingdom of Hawaii as its territory. Since that time, thought leaders throughout Hawaii have been wrestling with what the next step should be regarding the political and governing future of our islands. Today's conversation with our guest offers one of several models of sovereignty, and it's my pleasure to welcome Henry Noah to our
aloha,
program.
Lila, how
Aloha.
are you?
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, very nice to see you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
This has been your life work almost for many, many years. Can you share your title, what the work is about in your organization, and where are we in this sovereignty conversation?
I actually involved myself with the process of sovereignty that is actually based on international law. And the reason why I got involved with it was because I finally realized that without understanding and knowing how international law could assist our situation in Hawaii, I think we can be easily misled into trying to accept proposals that throughout my involvement has been so many different opinions and proposals presented to our people that after a while I started to release the frustration of how come we cannot understand what we're supposed to be doing, okay? And when I realized that the answer was actually in front of us, and I just decided to, seek out who else had this, thinking, and lo and behold, there were others in our community who were also proposing, that our sovereignty should be based on international law, and of course, it should be of the independent nature.
Now, when you say our sovereignty, is the model based on koko, on blood? Is it based on who wants to become a citizen? There's so much confusion and concern,
Sure.
that when and if there should be a transition with the United States letting Hawaii become itself, who would belong?
I think the process we identify as the reinstated Hawaiian Kingdom / Kingdom of Hawaii, whatever proper name you want to use. Both of them are used in our description. And what that means is that in this process, we reinstated the former government, structure, laws, and decided to research how does a country that had been, when we started the process, 1999, 110 years removed, how is that process able to manifest itself? Well, when we did some research in international law, it does state that the people of that nation have the right to put back a government of their choosing. And what I saw was the fact that since all of the documentation that was already there, historical information, laws that our former government had actually constructed, exercised, recognition documents, diplomatic correspondence, everything is there. It made all the sense in the world to just reinstate that former government.
And we're speaking reinstatement to 1893.
That's
when
correct.
we had a constitutional monarchy.
That's correct.
And that was the time when at the period of time when the Queen was overthrown.
That's correct.
And so you looked at that, what was going on at that time.
What I did was, I went a little further, okay? And I went to try to see if we could just pick up where that was negated. And fortunately for us, in our history, our Hawaiian Kingdom history, we became a constitutional monarchy by the blessings of our absolute ruler, who was King Kamehameha III. And when he created the first constitution of 1840, I wouldn't say fortunate, but through progress, we were able to get an amended constitution that came out. And that was the amended constitution of 1852. Okay? And then there was another amended constitution, you know, the Constitution of 1865.
So there was a working legislature at the
There was a
time.
process that was already laid down to what we could follow, we could adopt. So when we decided to reinstate our former government, got to understand that our government had a legislative body, which was made up of the people. We had a judicial branch, and we also had an executive branch. So we simply said, well, we don't have the monarch in place right now. We don't have a judicial system, but surely we can put back the legislative assembly, of which I believe that's what constitutional conventions are about, trying to form a legislative assembly. The difference is that what we did was, again, we reinstated the former offices, okay? And we felt back then that because there were so many advocates, okay, promoting sovereignty, we felt that if we took that proper claimant position, I think it would be easier for us as the years go by, that because we structured ourselves and adopted our former government, what we felt was eventually everyone else would realize that all we had to do was put back that government. And then, of course, the government already that was established provided all of the laws, the process, the procedures. So we as a legislature, right, when we got together, what we realized was it had an elections process. There were laws that were made to conduct an election. And that's what we did. We decided to, again, adopt the laws. And that took me three years alone, just to get representatives from every district that was represented in our former government to serve in the office of representative and the office of noble.
Whether or not they were Koko Hawaiian.
In the beginning, Okay? Because we didn't have a naturalization process in place yet, what happened was we just simply said, you know what, we will follow our law and then adopt these, changes. And the second thing I believe that was difficult was the fact that United States law forbids a U.S. citizen to participate in a foreign election. So we didn't stop them from participating. What we did was tell them, we're not sure if whether or not your participation would endanger yourself. Us with the cocoa, we already made our stand. We have something to stand on, and that is, this is our form of government, and we made that commitment to it.
And as an Aboriginal people, as an Indigenous people, it was logical to you that this should happen.
Even if you look at it through a point of law, that's where the nexus comes from. That's when you look into our historical books, okay, our law books. Can you imagine? Right after an election, you're blessed with all of these laws, and some of them don't apply at this date.
So that's what you work on.
We start to work on amending, adopting resolutions, and we've done that now from 1999, November. We have our 39th convention scheduled this weekend on the island of Maui.
Okay, so this is you're operating as if.
That's it.
And at the moment, the reality is there is a legislature in Hawaii, albeit we're not sure if they're legal or not. From one perspective, yes, no. And we are still, this place is still a state of the United States, according to their recognition. How do you envision transitioning away from the United States? Is it, there have been models that are nation within a nation, legislator within a legislator. What's the next steps?
I think the first issue to address is to finally have a body there so that body can negotiate. Because what I saw was, as long as we, our Kanaka people, are advocating separately, there won't be a body. So this is what we felt, that we should put back that lawful government, and from that government we begin dialogue. Because without the body, that's why the state can continue their actions. That's why the United States can continue their actions, because who are they supposed to discuss this issue with? That was the best thing that I saw in reinstatement.
And that's my next question. Okay, so there is a body that has a voice representing people. Who do you talk with? You talk with...
We've sent letters to all the countries of the world, informing them that we have reinstated our former government and nation. We definitely dialogued with the State Department at the United States government, because they're the ones that deal with foreign affairs, informing them that we have reinstated this government. We dialogue with the state government, the governor. We dialogue with the county governments, informing them that we have reinstated. And as I was saying, that becomes a part of your due process when you're trying to acquire a nation, because one, to me, the position that someone would take, that America would give it back to us, I think the first question would be is, who does America give it back to? And if there is no viable body there, then they have the right to remain. The second one is, if you're thinking that they're giving it back to us, I think you're wishing upon a star. So, what we saw was construction, cultivation, educating, and we made that commitment. So when we stepped out, or when we began the process, we all knew that it would have to come through education, not just education, but exercise, okay? And when I talk about exercise, I talk about that if you've already proclaimed that you're a government, okay, one of the things that governments do possess is authority to grant rights and privileges to its citizens. And when I had the privilege of going to other nations, okay, to sit down and to discuss support for our process. And the feeling that I would have while I'm there is America is definitely a very powerful nation. And some of these nations depend upon America. And there are not too many of them out there that have that, I would say, that courage to step forward, okay? But that shouldn't stop what we're doing, okay? So what we began to do, was enter two fronts. Enter the international dialogue, okay? And then come back home and start to execute our rights. What rights do I talk about? We've actually issued out our identification of our nationals. We've actually have developed our policies on our right to travel, where nationals do receive our registration papers. I mean, it's this. Sometimes it takes a little bit of action so that you can get better reaction from your opponent. So we do the right to travel. We do the right to conduct business, okay? And we've also taken steps to the right to claim lands that we can positively identify that it belongs to our Hawaiian government. Okay, so
let's pause.
What happens when you do something like that? You end up in a legal conflict.
Because you are acting as if.
I guess you could say as if, you know.
Yes.
Yeah? It just depends, like I said, it just depends how each individual, actually focuses or they interprets what we're doing. Because for many of us who are involved, like I said, I really don't think that America is going to give us back any sovereignty, and that in order for us to get support in the international arena, we definitely have to demonstrate that we want it. Yeah, we want it, and we got to be able to exercise.
Okay, so you have a legislative process going on that has representation from all islands. And you mentioned the word land. You know, there's so much confusion out there on ceded lands and crown lands and what are federal lands and state lands. When you speak of land, is it land that encompasses all of Hawaii, as the kingdom was all of Hawaii? Or is it portions of land? I mean, how? Because I think that that's some of the anxiety for people who are not Koko or who don't understand necessarily the movement towards sovereignty. I
think this may have been the blessing for us today, those that are of, Kanaka nationality, that what took place in our former government, as far as the word they use is the mahele, they've been in the mahele, lands were designated, okay? I mean, they identify them today as crown lands, government lands, and lands that went to individuals, Kuleana lands. And there were more than Kuleana lands that was actually granted. But the beauty of that I see, is the fact that we, reinstating the Hawaiian government, there's a portion of land there that we have a right to. So instead of causing anxiety to everybody, we decided that we should focus on reclaiming our Hawaiian government land. Okay? And the Crown, being a part of the government, being a part of it, okay? In fact, it was the Crown that created our government, you know, our functioning, that we have an obligation to even claim those lands. Okay? In our execution of claiming lands, as we continue to move this process forward, we begin to become a lot more educated. I believe to the point where we're becoming that much more effective in making claims that we're able to hold on to. Okay?
And so it is, I've heard you earlier say that it is education and information and including others in the conversations as laws are being made that will help in the transition. How do you envision this transition taking place? And transition to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is an acknowledgement by the United States that the legislative process that you are engaged in is just and viable and can either coexist or can replace what exists.
You know, fortunately, as international law has developed, okay, I mean, prior to our reinstating, you know, process, there were, I think, close to almost 21 countries that were, their independence was reinstated. And the interesting part was how these reinstatements took place, okay? And in our study, what we found is that there is avenues available to a people who's lost their sovereignty, and those avenues are at the international level. And believe it or not, we, you know, when I say we, the people involved with reinstated, we've never went to that arena, the United Nations, yet, because we felt that as long as we could continue constructing and developing this government, it'll only add to the existence of what's here in Hawaii. Because when you ask me a question such as, will the United States recognize us? There's a principle in international law, okay, that is defined, yeah, as it being of a perfect right or of an imperfect right. And it really applies to independence and sovereign status in international law, okay? When you exercise an imperfect right, and I mean, there are actually written, okay, I mean, historical writings on this issue, that countries unknowingly gave up their perfect right because they opted to exercise imperfect right. In a nutshell, if someone owns or has a right to a nation and goes to the very entity that has it illegally and requests from that entity to give it back, you've already placed yourself into an imperfect position, imperfect right, and imperfect obligations. That was the value of learning international law, I felt, okay? We never did ask whether or not we should get our recognition from the United States. Okay, you don't go ask the person, first of all, who apologized to you and told the world. What you do is you continue to cultivate that position where that document becomes primary in front of what you're now presenting to the international arena.
So I like the word that you use, cultivate. Because it is about information and it is generating response and participation. As our program wraps up right now for this particular conversation. Are you cultivating a younger generation and to not only understand, but to take action? Because I get it from what you're saying, that the model is about action that's already being taken. It's not a proposed future action. The future will come as the laws need to be made and the courts need to be addressed. What kind of cultivation is there going on with the younger generation, even non-Hawaiians?
Well, personally, I can share this with you, that it's nice to see that my children are involved and their friends. And we definitely, focus on trying to get the younger generation to understand what we're doing, you know. And one of the things that we do identify, with our process is it's not a sprint. It's like, it's definitely a marathon. And you know, people, when they first come on board or they want to learn about what reinstatement is about, they want something now, you know. And I've learned over the years that it's better to just continue educating so that individuals who come into contact with what we're doing, at least they have that thought, that knowledge, that this process is definitely there. It's continued to, again, construct what its goal is, and that is, one, to acquire recognition of our former Kingdom of Hawaii. And the only way that we see that happening is our own people need to realize the value of what was done in this reinstatement process. And they have equal opportunity to participate with this process, like someone who has been a part of the process from the inception. And we've conducted 4 elections, and everybody, we try our best to get that information out with what little funding we have, okay? But the value, like I said, is for a nation, to me, the record needs to be constructed, okay?
Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
helping to clarify a very complicated, but actually very clear decisions and conversation that we've been having about the future of Hawaii.
Fantastic.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
I'm Lila Berg, host of this program, Sovereignty Conversations. Please join us again. Thank you, and aloha.
Kaulana na pua o Hawaii, kupa ama hope o kaina, iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino.